Who are you considering as your vice presidential candidate?
Well, I haven't given a whole lot of consideration as of yet, but every single day I think I have to get closer to thinking about that. But one time somebody asked me who I would consider, and the name Judge Napolitano jumped right out. But when you think about it, the danger of mentioning one or two means that you're not going to mention quite a few others that would certainly be qualified. And that's a great story, you know, the fact that there are a lot of people now that are well known and are well educated and know the issues and would do a very good job.
If necessary, and if you had the backing, would you consider a third-party rep?
Probably not. And for various reasons. There are some laws that are slanted and biased against us once you get into a primary. Even though John Anderson did it, you know, he ran and then still ran as an independent. But the laws are so biased, you know, there's a tendency for Republicans and Democrats to work together to preserve what, you know, their establishment. So they write the laws to make it hard to get on ballots. When I tried that in '88, I spent more than half the money just trying to get on ballots.
But if there's a plurality that will support you, that's the way you can get in.
Yeah, but it's really tough, and I think you need a ton of money to do it. I think there's going to be an independent candidate, and I wouldn't be surprised if Trump ends up doing that. And I think that would not be the best thing for our republic.
As you know, the major media basically ignored the GAO report about a $16 trillion bailout of the big banks, American and International, about the Federal Reserve. So hardly anybody knows it outside, you know, the freedom movement on the internet. Well, how do you think we can get that message out to American people that don't know that, you know, this $16 trillion has been given out to these banks at near 0% interest, and we're going to have hearings on this subject in Congress at the committee that you chair. Yes. So that's going to happen, you think?
He asked about how can we get the information out, because the information is so indicting. And of course, this is why we worked hard last year on a true audit of the Federal Reserve, and we got a token audit of the Federal Reserve, and we won some court cases on that, which has been very beneficial. So the information is coming out. But how do you spread the message? The best we can, any way we can, and that is our big job. But I think so far, a lot more people know about it than ever before. I talk about it a lot, and others are talking about it. And this is one issue you can bring progressives around, because you know, the monetary system supports the privileged corporations and the banks, and progressives will, you know, you can appeal to them on that. So no, there's no magic. It has to be everybody doing their part. But it is atrocious on what they did. I mean, of the $15 trillion they were involved with, a third of it went to foreign banks. I mean, if we can't stir the emotions and the concern of the American people with that information, we're in big trouble. But it is a powerful message, and we should work very hard at getting it out. That's one way of persuading them.
What's been the congressman's response when they heard about it around you?
About information like that?
About this, when it came out, was any response in Congress halls talking about what they thought about it?
Yeah, you'll get a dozen or two who will say, you're right, and the rest, they just, their eyes glaze over.
Yeah, I'm from Nevada, and the last convention, you were essentially elected the nominee in Nevada, and then there was a big convolution, yes, and all of the delegates were sent home, and then McCain's delegates were brought in, the revote happened, and then you were no longer the delegate. What can be done are there any mechanisms in place to make sure this doesn't happen again? That was very clever last time, and what can individuals do to make sure that doesn't happen again?
Well, you know, we do our best on that, and Campaign for Liberty try to, you know, spread information along these lines, because when he's talking about in Nevada, we actually had control of the convention, so they closed the convention down and we didn't get any delegates. And the question is, well, if you can do all this other work, but if they have control of the apparatus, you're not going to win anything. But we continue to do our best to deal with this, but actually a lot is done spontaneously by supporters around the country. In Nevada, I mean, we're in a much stronger position now, and there's so many of our supporters that went in and got involved. In Iowa, for instance, there's a lot of our supporters that are now right in the party itself, in the party leadership. New Hampshire, I mean, they have 400 state reps, and I think approximately 40 of them were, there were 80 some new ones, but I think 40 of them were very supportive or sympathetic to what we're doing. So there's a lot of our supporters in the position that will be able to help protect against that, but I'm sure we have a lot more work to do.
Well, I would just go back to his question. I mean, all of the polls, post straw poll polls or whatever, online polls, debate polls, all show that there's strong support for you in the general population. So I would beg you that if you're somehow shut out of the Republican nomination, I would beg you to run as an independent, because I think the support will be there for you. I think everybody here will be there for you. Absolutely.
Congressman Powell, how concerned are you about military aggression against Iran? Do you think there's support amongst both parties? Because they keep asking you about your position, and I sort of sense this, that there might be something before the next election, because that's the one country that both parties really want to go after.
He asked how likely is it that we will go after Iran before the next election and actually go in there and bomb or invade. I think it's not imminent, but there are a lot of people there that would want to do it. It's a great danger. They haven't given up on it. And what's going on now in Libya, it's not just a few patriotic Libyans that are getting together. I mean, there's a lot to be settled down there. If that gets a little bit more settled, I think they'll go into Syria next. And once they take over Syria, and they happens to be, NATO, Europeans, United States allies that get together that are back to mercantilism and colonialism, and neo-colonialism, where they want to protect their oil, our oil. So that's going to continue, but then they will want to go after Iran. And I wouldn't want to make a prediction, say yes, before the next election something is going to happen, but you can't ever tell. But it won't happen just like under conditions today. They will have to build up the war propaganda. There will have to be some type of an accident. There will have to be an incident that will occur. And then the American people say, yeah, we're going to go get them. But the propaganda is there constantly. And I mean, I get the question all the time. You mean to say that you wouldn't go there and bomb them if they were on the verge of getting a nuclear bomb? No, I wouldn't do it. I mean, there's so many nuclear weapons around. It's that whole thing it's a natural thing for the Iranians to think they ought to have a nuclear weapon. So I think it's very dangerous. I don't think they're on the verge of doing it, but I wouldn't be totally shocked and totally surprised if something happened before the next election.
Because here in California, we have a bunch of environmentalists like Senator Barbara Boxer who shut off the water in the finest farmland we have in the country. We're an agricultural state as well. Is there any way you can get that water turned back on for us to get those farms going? Because now that Texas has a drought, we sure need California's crops.
I don't understand the details, but if it doesn't have any involvement in interstate water flow, the federal government wouldn't be involved. But if it were involved with some type of interstate problem, then the federal government should be involved. But I wouldn't want to give you my solution to that without probably looking at it a little more carefully.
First, I wanted to add to something that the gentleman said about you running perhaps for a third party. I have some friends who are still in the paradigm of that we have a two-party system as opposed to just one-party system, a war system. and they will not register as Republicans to vote in the primaries. And as we all know, once you pass the primaries, you have to make two choices. So I think there is this opportunity, if things don't go our way in the primaries, for you to run as a third party, because there's a lot of people who are not going to vote in the primaries that will vote for you, so they love your message. Well,
yeah, I know that you're anticipating certain things that will happen, and in some ways, we're very much involved in running a campaign, and we don't want to start thinking about what are we going to do when we lose. We're investing a lot of time, a lot of your money into doing our very best in this campaign, and we don't know exactly how it will come out, and we won't know much. We should know early next year. There are some early January campaigns in February, but I think it's pretty premature, and we better think about, before we enter another race, we're going to win the first one.
I have a lot of Democrat friends, and we always are talking about poor people. And I feel like the difference between us and a lot of liberals and Democrats is they want their charity done through the government because they don't trust individuals to do it. And so my friend asked me, I would love to ask Republicans, you know, what would you say to a poor person? How would you get a poor person to elect you? So I would want to pose that question to you.
Well, I can't do it in 30 seconds on TV, but you have to start by showing them the difference between how many poor people there are in countries where they're authoritarians versus how many poor people do you have that tend to have more freedom. And the evidence is just overwhelming. There are less poor people in a country like ours used to be, when we had a lot more economic freedom and more prosperity. Then you always get a larger middle class. And the poor, you know, are helped in that manner. But if you have total authoritarianism, the middle class becomes the low class and the poor class, and that expands. But you never get rid of the wealth. Even under the communist system, there was an elite class. So it just doesn't work. One example that I've been using to demonstrate that, and that is the current example of the housing bubble. First, they said, well, we have to have the poor. The poor need houses, so we're going to do this. We're going to have a lot of easy credit, so the Fed gets involved. And then you say, in order to make these loans, we need Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. So we'll extend loans and give special deals that will even encourage more housing. Then you go and you say, well, we even have to do more. So Barney Frank really pushes the Community Reinvestment Act to force banks to make bad loans. And then if you look at from the 80s and the 90s and even up to 08, this bubble gradually and steadily built. And they said, look at all the houses. Now we have 72% of the people, now I don't know the numbers, 72% of the people now have a house, and it used to be they only had 52%. And it's so wonderful. We take care of the poor people. And besides, the poor people are getting richer. They can buy a house without a down payment for $100,000, and the house is worth $150,000, and they can borrow more money. It's perpetual prosperity. It becomes just foolish, and just a little bit of arithmetic adds up. And then the conclusion is that those who knew about this and warned about it, a bubble coming, then it bursts, and then it is declared, well, we have to save everybody. It was a calamity. We have to make sure there's no depression and the poor people will get poorer. So what do we do? You know, all this business of helping poor people, who gets help? The rich. You know, the bankers and the builders and the mortgage people, and they all make billions, and then they get into super gambling with derivatives and on, and then the crunch comes, and they convince the poor people, oh boy, am I threatened? I don't want a depression. I don't want to lose my job. Bail them out, bail them out. So the government goes and bails them out, and they get back on their feet again, make a lot of money, and what happens to the poor people? They lost their jobs, they lost their houses. So it's an economic fallacy to think that government can redistribute wealth and create more prosperity. Matter of fact, it's exactly the opposite. John, what's that? Did you want to give a speech?
Nope. Just telling you it's
this time. Oh, okay, very good. And I thank you very much.
Don't leave us.
Come back.
Where you go now?
Come back, Dave. Well, that was great.